The alien queen led the charge, yet even she feared humanity's fury. Queen Zalrith had never believed in hesitation. From the moment she had taken the living crown of the Veiled Dominion, her rule had been defined by motion forward, always forward. Worlds fell not because her fleets were the largest, but because her will was absolute. When she chose a target, the galaxy learned to step aside. The human frontier was supposed to be no different. At first, the reports were unremarkable. A species from a high-gravity death world, short lifespan, emotional. Fragmented governments unified only recently. Their technology was competent but unspectacular. Their territory sat at the edge of mapped space, inconvenient but strategically useful. The Council maps showed human space as a thin band of stars, lightly defended. Queen Zalrith stood on the command dais of her flagship and looked out through the vast crystal viewport. Thousands of ships drifted in perfect formation, their hulls glowing with the faint energy of shield fields. This armada had ended civilizations older than humanity's written history. The Queen's confidence was shared by every officer aboard. Still, something about the humans bothered her. The first human message arrived before the fleet crossed the border. It was not encrypted, it was not emotional, it did not even mention surrender. "This is human space. You are approaching a civilian corridor. Alter course." That was all. No titles, no threats, no begging. Zalrith ordered the message replayed twice. The voice was calm, male, and carried no tremor. Her advisors laughed quietly, assuming arrogance or fear disguised as courage. The fleet continued. As they crossed the boundary, human traffic scattered. Cargo vessels fled toward inner systems. Small escort ships positioned themselves between civilian craft and the incoming armada. They were vastly outnumbered, yet they did not retreat. Zalrith watched with interest as human formations shifted. Instead of charging forward, they spread out, creating wide defensive screens. Energy signatures flared as shields strengthened around transports rather than warships. "They protect non-combatants first," one officer noted. "A poor tactic," another replied. "It weakens their striking force." Zalrith said nothing. She simply watched. The first exchange of fire was brief. Veil plasma lances struck human cruisers, tearing through armor. 2 ships were lost within moments. But the human fleet did not break. Damaged vessels withdrew behind others, shielded by allies that adjusted position without command signals visible to Veil sensors. Human ships fired back, not at the largest vessels, but at targeting arrays and engine clusters. Several Veil destroyers drifted helplessly within seconds. Zalrith narrowed her eyes. This was not panicked resistance. This was controlled response. The battle expanded as more human forces arrived. Still fewer than the invaders, still outmatched in raw power. Yet the humans refused to abandon evacuation routes. When a Veil commander attempted a flanking maneuver to cut off civilian escape, human ships intercepted, even when it meant exposing their own backs to enemy fire. Losses mounted on both sides. Zalrith felt a strange sensation as she watched human ships self-destruct near Veil vessels, not as a weapon of despair, but to disrupt enemy targeting and allow others to escape. The sacrifice was precise, purposeful, and quiet. No battle cries echoed through open channels. No declarations of glory, only efficiency. As hours passed, Zalrith noticed something unsettling. Human commanders were learning. Each engagement grew sharper. Where once they reacted, now they anticipated. Veil tactics that had crushed dozens of species lost effectiveness within a single cycle. Still, victory was inevitable. Numbers and experience would prevail. Zalrith ordered a deeper advance. Then came the incident. A Veil cruiser, damaged and drifting, misfired its main weapon while attempting to disengage. The blast struck a human colony transport that had been hiding its signature among debris. The ship broke apart instantly. Thousands of life signs vanished. For a moment, nothing happened. Human channels went silent. The Queen expected rage-filled transmissions. She expected desperate retaliation. Instead, there was nothing at all. Silence stretched across the battlefield. Even the weapon's fire slowed, as if both sides sensed a change. Then the human signal returned. "All units," the calm voice said again, different now, colder. "Rules of engagement updated." Zalrith felt it then, not fear exactly, but awareness. Something fundamental had shifted. Human ships stopped retreating. New formations emerged with mathematical precision. Vessels that had been defending civilians now surged forward, their movements synchronized beyond anything Zalrith had seen. Energy readings spiked as dormant systems activated. These were not new ships arriving. These were existing ships revealing capabilities they had not used before. Human weapons changed behavior. Instead of brute force, they struck with surgical accuracy. Power nodes failed. Shield harmonics collapsed. Veil ships were not destroyed. They were rendered inert. One by one, entire squadrons drifted powerless. Zalrith's tactical officers struggled to respond. Countermeasures failed. Electronic warfare spread like a shadow, blinding sensors and severing command links. "Deploy reserves," Zalrith ordered. The reserves never reached the front. Human interceptors appeared where no ship should have been able to reach in time, exploiting micro-jumps calculated to the smallest margin of error. The Queen leaned forward, gripping the railing. These were not desperate defenders. These were controlled predators. As the battlefield tilted, something else became clear. Humans still avoided civilian targets. They still maneuvered to protect escape lanes. Their fury was not wild. It was disciplined. That frightened her. A message appeared on the Queen's console. Not a demand, not a taunt. "This conflict can end now. Withdraw from human space." Zalrith stared at the words. Her empire had never received such a message while losing. Victors demanded surrender. Conquerors demanded tribute. Humans offered an ending. She ignored it and ordered a final push. Pride demanded it. History demanded it. The result was devastating. Within minutes, human forces isolated the Queen's flagship. Surrounding ships held fire, weapons locked but silent. The message came again. "Withdraw, no further loss is required." Zalrith looked around her command chamber. Her officers waited for her decision. Some showed fear. Others showed awe. For the first time in her life, Queen Zalrith understood the nature of the species before her. Humans were not strong because they sought war. They were strong because they avoided it until there was no other choice. She ordered the retreat. The battlefield fell quiet as Veil ships disengaged. Human vessels did not pursue beyond the border. They held position, watching, guarding. As the fleet withdrew into hyperspace, Zalrith felt the weight of something she had never carried before. Respect. She knew the galaxy would ask why she had retreated. She knew her enemies would whisper of weakness. But she also knew the truth. Humanity's fury was not loud. It did not boast. It waited. And once unleashed, even a conquering queen learned to step back. The retreat did not bring peace to Queen Zalrith's mind. As her flagship slipped back into safer space, the great armada that once symbolized unstoppable power now felt heavy and uncertain. Ships were damaged, crews shaken, and something unseen had been wounded deeper than hulls or systems. Pride had cracked. Queen Zalrith stood alone in her private chamber, staring at the shifting stars. She replayed the battle again and again in her thoughts. The humans had not chased them. They had not mocked them. They had simply stopped, as if satisfied that a line had been drawn and understood. That unsettled her more than defeat. In the days that followed, reports arrived from every corner of the Veil Dominion. Commanders spoke in careful words. Analysts hesitated before conclusions. The humans were being studied again, but this time with urgency rather than arrogance. Human fleets had not expanded beyond their borders. No counter-invasion followed. No grand speech echoed across the galaxy. Instead, humanity fortified quietly. Defensive platforms appeared near their systems. Trade routes shifted. Diplomatic channels opened to neighboring species with calm offers of cooperation. "They are preparing," Zalrith murmured during a High Council session. "For revenge?" one noble asked. "No," the Queen replied, "for endurance." The council chamber fell silent. Scouts sent toward human space reported strange behavior. Human worlds increased agricultural output. Shipyards ran constantly, not just producing warships, but transport vessels, hospitals, and rescue craft. Civilian training programs expanded. Entire populations were being organized with purpose, not fear. Resolve. Queen Zalrith ordered deeper intelligence gathering. What she learned only deepened her unease. Human history was full of internal conflict, yet also filled with moments where humanity united when threatened from beyond. Wars fought not for glory, but survival. Time and again, humans had proven that pressure did not break them. It focused them. Meanwhile, unrest began to grow within the Veil Dominion. Some commanders questioned the retreat. Others whispered that the Queen had shown mercy to a weak species. Border worlds murmured about vulnerability. Rival factions sensed opportunity. Queen Zalrith crushed open rebellion swiftly, but doubt could not be executed so easily. Then came the first unexpected message. A human diplomatic vessel entered neutral space under escort from 3 different species. It did not demand audience. It requested dialogue. The Queen allowed it. The human envoy was unremarkable in appearance. No armor, no weapons visible, calm eyes. The human bowed slightly, a gesture learned from studying alien customs. "We do not seek conflict," the envoy said simply. "But we will not allow harm to those under our protection." Zalrith studied the human carefully. There was no fear in their posture, no arrogance either. "You faced my fleets and survived," the Queen said. "Many species would celebrate, you do not." The human nodded. "Because survival is not the goal, stability is." That word echoed in Zalrith's mind long after the meeting ended. As weeks passed, the galaxy reacted. Smaller empires that once feared the Veiled Dominion began renegotiating treaties. Neutral worlds sought human alliances. Trade shifted subtly but steadily. Humanity did not dominate these talks. They listened. They offered aid, not control. Pirate activity dropped sharply near human space. Distress signals were answered quickly and efficiently. Stories spread of human crews rescuing alien civilians without demanding reward. The image of humanity began to change. Queen Zalrith watched all of this with growing tension. Her empire had been built on fear and inevitability. Humanity offered something different: choice. Then came the border incident. A Veil patrol encountered human scouts near a disputed system. A single nervous officer fired without authorization. No ships were destroyed, but the shot crossed the invisible line. Human response was immediate, not violent. Every human ship in the region powered weapons, locked targets, and held position. Communications flooded open channels. "This action is noted," the human voice said. "Stand down." The Veil patrol froze. Queen Zalrith received the report moments later. She expected retaliation. Instead, humanity waited. She ordered an apology transmitted. The patrol was withdrawn. Human ships powered down. The message was clear. They were watching. Within her own empire, fear grew not of invasion, but of consequence. Humanity did not strike first. Humanity remembered. Queen Zalrith convened her closest advisors in secret. "If war comes again," one said, "we must strike harder." Zalrith shook her head slowly. "You do not understand. Harder is what they are waiting for." Silence followed. The Queen dismissed them and returned to her chamber. Alone, she considered a truth she had never admitted before. She feared humanity's fury not because of its strength, but because it was controlled by conscience. A weapon guided by restraint was far more dangerous than one driven by rage. As months passed, humanity's influence spread quietly, not through conquest but reliability. When disasters struck distant worlds, human ships arrived. When plagues spread, human medicine followed. When trade routes failed, humans adapted. They never demanded loyalty. They earned it. The Galactic Council began to shift. Old powers argued. New voices rose. Humanity did not dominate sessions, yet their absence was noticed when they were not present. Queen Zalrith watched this transformation with sharp awareness. Her empire remained strong, but the galaxy's fear of it was fading. Humanity had not challenged her throne directly. They had made it less relevant. Then the final report arrived. Human fleet exercises near their core worlds showed capabilities far beyond what had been revealed in battle. Defensive layers, rapid mobilization, contingency planning that assumed worst-case scenarios. They were not preparing for attack. They were preparing to survive anything. Queen Zalrith closed the report and exhaled slowly. She understood now. The battle at the border had not been humanity's fury. It had been humanity's warning. And if the galaxy ever forced them to unleash everything they had been holding back, even a queen who led the charge would not stand in their way. Time did not calm the galaxy. It sharpened it. Queen Zalrith felt the change long before reports confirmed it. Trade lanes grew crowded with nervous traffic. Neutral systems reinforced defenses. Even ancient empires that once ignored the Veiled Dominion began updating fleets and protocols. Humanity had not attacked anyone, yet their presence pressed against the minds of rulers like a silent weight. The humans remained inside their borders, but their reach expanded in other ways. Information flowed faster. Relief fleets appeared wherever disaster struck. Human engineers helped rebuild shattered stations without demanding territory or tribute. They asked only for cooperation and trust, and trust, slowly, was given. Within the Veil Dominion, the effect was dangerous. Worlds that had accepted Veil rule out of fear began to ask questions. Why could humans protect without chains? Why did they answer calls for help instead of demands for obedience? Queen Zalrith suppressed such thoughts publicly, but privately they gnawed at her. She reviewed battle recordings again, focusing not on the ships but on timing. Humanity reacted too fast, not just in one system but everywhere. That meant preparation far beyond what any scout report had shown. They had expected her, not her personally, but someone like her. The realization chilled her. Then came the fracture. A Veil-controlled system near the galactic rim declared independence. Its leaders cited humanitarian alignment with human principles. They requested protection from human fleets. The request alone was an insult. Queen Zalrith summoned her war council. Voices clashed. Some demanded immediate destruction of the rebel world. Others warned against provoking humanity. They will not intervene, a general insisted. They avoid escalation. Zalrith raised a clawed hand for silence. They avoid unnecessary escalation, she said. There is a difference. Still, she authorized a limited response, a show of force, enough to remind the galaxy who ruled the Dominion. The fleet entered the rebel system without resistance. Communications were jammed. The planetary shield grid powered down under Veil override codes. Then human ships arrived. Not many. Enough. They positioned themselves between the Veil fleet and the planet, weapons idle but shields fully charged. Human channels opened. This world has requested humanitarian protection, the calm voice said. Stand down. The Veil Admiral hesitated. Orders demanded compliance. Pride demanded defiance. He fired. The shot never reached its target. Human point defenses intercepted it instantly. In the same moment, every Veil ship lost navigation control. Engines locked. Weapons shut down. No explosions, no deaths, just helplessness. Queen Zalrith received the report seconds later. Her chest tightened as she realized the scope of what had happened. Humanity had not needed numbers. They had needed preparation. She ordered an immediate withdrawal. Human ships disengaged without pursuit. The rebel world remained intact. Across the galaxy, the message spread faster than any official broadcast. Humanity did not conquer systems. They defended choices. That was more dangerous than force. Within weeks, more worlds considered leaving old empires. Some asked for human mediation. Others simply prepared to resist future domination. The Galactic Council fractured into factions. Debates turned bitter. Accusations flew. Humanity sat quietly listening. Queen Zalrith attended one such council session in person. The chamber was filled with tension so thick it seemed to hum. You destabilize galactic order, an elder ruler accused the human delegate. The human replied evenly. Order built on fear is already unstable. Murmurs rippled through the hall. Queen Zalrith watched carefully. The humans did not argue loudly. They did not insult. They spoke with measured clarity, choosing words that could not be twisted easily. It was another form of warfare. After the session, Queen Zalrith requested a private meeting with the human representative. They met in a neutral chamber, bare and quiet. You changed the galaxy without firing weapons, Zalrith said. Was this always your plan? The human considered before answering. We learned early that survival requires more than strength. It requires meaning. Zalrith's eyes narrowed. Meaning does not stop fleets. No, the human agreed, but it determines which fleets stand together when tested. That answer stayed with her. Soon after, intelligence confirmed what Zalrith had feared. Humanity was not just defending borders. They were building layered alliances, shared logistics, mutual defense protocols, not an empire but a network. If war came, humanity would not fight alone. Inside the Veil Dominion, pressure mounted. Commanders questioned orders. Citizens questioned sacrifices. The idea that the Queen's authority was absolute began to crack. Zalrith addressed the Dominion publicly, projecting strength and unity. Yet even as she spoke, she knew fear no longer ruled hearts as it once had. Then disaster struck a neutral star cluster. A stellar instability threatened dozens of inhabited worlds. The Council argued over jurisdiction and response. Humanity acted. Massive evacuation fleets arrived within hours. Medical ships followed. Engineers stabilized orbital habitats. Human commanders coordinated with local forces smoothly without asserting control. Queen Zalrith watched from afar, conflicted. Her own empire could have helped. It did not. The comparison was unavoidable. For the first time since her rise, Zalrith questioned the foundation of her rule. Not aloud, not even in council, but alone she wondered whether conquest had always been the wrong answer. Then came the warning. Deep space sensors detected unknown movement beyond mapped regions. Ancient machines, dormant for millennia, began to awaken. Their patterns matched no known species. Human analysts identified the threat quickly. Automated extermination constructs remnants of a long-dead civilization. They moved without negotiation, without mercy. Human channels opened to the galaxy. "This is not a conflict you can face divided," the message said. "We must stand together." Some empires hesitated. Old grudges resurfaced. Queen Zalrith did not. She recognized the tone, calm, serious, unafraid. She ordered her fleets to prepare for joint operations with humanity. Her advisors stared at her in shock. "You would fight beside them?" one asked. "Yes," Zalrith replied. "Because they fight for survival, not dominance." As fleets gathered, human and Veil ships shared data. Coordinated defenses, trained together, the humans did not gloat, they did not command, they collaborated. On the battlefield against the machines, humanity's restraint vanished. Their fury emerged, not as chaos, but as perfect coordination. Layers of defense absorbed machine assaults. Countermeasures adapted instantly. Human commanders predicted enemy behavior with terrifying accuracy. The machines were powerful. Humanity was relentless. Queen Zalrith watched human soldiers protect alien civilians without hesitation. She saw damaged human ships refuse extraction until others were safe. She saw sacrifice not demanded by rulers but chosen by individuals. The enemy was defeated. The galaxy breathed again. In the aftermath, celebrations erupted across many worlds. Humanity did not claim victory. They honored the fallen of all species. Queen Zalrith stood before her people and spoke words she never thought she would. "The galaxy has changed," she said. "Strength alone is no longer enough." Some resisted, others listened. She knew her reign would never be the same, but she also knew something else. Humanity's fury was real, and now she had seen what it was truly meant for. The galaxy did not return to its old balance after the war with the machines. It could not. Too much had been seen, too much had been learned. Queen Zalrith felt it in every report she read and every message she received. The Veiled Dominion still existed. Its fleets were still strong. Its world still obeyed. But obedience no longer came from fear alone. Comparison had entered the minds of her people, and comparison was dangerous. They had fought beside humans. They had seen another way. Human fleets withdrew after the victory, returning to their borders and allied systems. They did not stay to occupy. They did not demand control over joint defense zones. They shared data, offered continued cooperation, and then stepped back. That choice unsettled many rulers more than conquest ever had. In the months that followed, rebuilding began across the galaxy. Worlds damaged by the machines were repaired with joint effort. Human engineers worked alongside alien specialists. Veil logistics ships delivered materials under human coordination. Old rivals stood side by side because the alternative had already proven deadly. Queen Zalrith allowed it. She told herself it was strategy. She told herself unity was efficient. But deep inside, she knew the truth. She no longer wanted to rule a galaxy of broken voices. Within her own dominion, change accelerated. Young officers who had fought beside humans questioned traditional doctrine. Why were civilians always last to be considered in Veil campaigns? Why was sacrifice demanded rather than chosen? Why was fear the foundation of loyalty? These questions spread quietly like cracks under a heavy structure. Queen Zalrith summoned her inner council. The chamber was filled with veterans, nobles, and commanders who had served her for decades. "The Dominion is stable," one said, "but unrest grows." "Human influence," another added with clear distaste. Zalrith listened without interruption. "They weaken your authority," a general warned. "If this continues, worlds will demand reforms, limits." The word limits hung in the air like a threat. Queen Zalrith rose slowly from her throne. Her presence still commanded silence. Her shadow stretched across the chamber floor. "Humanity does not weaken authority," she said calmly. "They expose its foundation." Some council members shifted uneasily. "For generations," she continued, "we ruled because we were feared. Fear kept systems in line. Fear built our fleets. Fear fed our power." She paused, then spoke the words that shocked them all. Fear also made us fragile. Anger rippled through the chamber. A ruler who relies only on fear must never show weakness, Zalrith said. Humans showed restraint, cooperation, and mercy, and the galaxy followed them. You suggest we become like them, one noble said sharply. No, Zalrith replied. I suggest we survive. The council ended without agreement. That night, Queen Zalrith stood alone on the balcony of her flagship, watching the stars drift by. She remembered the first battle against humanity, the moment when they stopped retreating, the moment when restraint turned into controlled fury. She understood now that humanity had never fought for dominance. They fought to protect something, and protection created loyalty stronger than fear ever could. Her thoughts were interrupted by an urgent transmission. Long-range sensors detected movement again, not the ancient machines, something else. A coalition of old empires, fearful of humanity's growing influence, had begun secret mobilization. They believed a preemptive strike could break the network before it grew stronger. They planned to attack human-allied systems simultaneously. Queen Zalrith felt a cold weight settle in her core. She summoned intelligence reports, battle projections, and diplomatic analyses. The conclusion was clear. If the attack succeeded, the galaxy would fall back into chaos. If it failed, humanity's restraint might finally break. Either outcome terrified her. She requested a direct channel to human leadership. The connection opened quickly. The human representative appeared calm as always, but their eyes sharpened as Zalrith spoke. There is a coalition forming against you, the Queen said. They fear what you represent. We suspected, the human replied. Thank you for confirming. You must prepare, Zalrith said. They will not stop at your borders. We are prepared, the human answered, but we will not strike first. Zalrith felt frustration rise. Your restraint may cost millions of lives. The human did not deny it. We know. That answer struck her harder than any threat. After the transmission ended, Queen Zalrith made a decision that would define her reign. She ordered the Veil fleets to deploy along human-allied routes. Not as invaders, as shields. The announcement shook the Dominion. Some worlds celebrated, others protested. Several commanders resigned. A few attempted defiance and were removed. Queen Zalrith stood firm. When the coalition attack came, it was swift and brutal. Missiles and energy strikes targeted human-allied worlds, expecting minimal resistance. They met a wall. Human defense grids activated instantly. Veil warships absorbed the first wave of fire. Joint command protocols executed flawlessly. Alien fleets that had once fought each other now moved as one. The attackers had not expected unity. Human fury was unleashed. This time there was no restraint in battle. Precision strikes dismantled enemy fleets. Supply lines vanished. Command ships were isolated and disabled. Human commanders coordinated responses faster than the attackers could adapt. But even now, civilians were spared. Escape corridors were protected. Surrender signals were honored. Queen Zalrith led from the front, her flagship anchoring defensive lines. She felt something unfamiliar in her chest as she watched human and alien ships move together with absolute trust. Purpose. The coalition collapsed within days. Its leaders were captured or fled. Their fleets were dismantled, not destroyed, to prevent further escalation. When the fighting ended, the galaxy waited. They waited for humanity's response, for conquest, for punishment, for domination. None came. Instead, humanity called for a council, not to assign blame, to set boundaries. Agreements were formed, mutual defense pacts. Clear consequences for aggression, systems for conflict resolution. Humanity did not rule these structures, they participated in them. Queen Zalrith watched as the galaxy accepted a new order, not because it was forced, because it worked. Within the Veil Dominion, resistance to change weakened. Worlds saw stability improve, trade increased. Fear faded. Loyalty transformed into something quieter, stronger. Queen Zalrith addressed her people once more. We stood at the edge of endless war, she said. We chose another path, not because we were weak, but because survival demands wisdom. Not all agreed, but enough did. As the stars drifted on, Queen Zalrith understood the final truth. Humanity's fury was not their greatest weapon, it was their restraint. And when even a conquering queen chose to stand beside them, the galaxy itself changed direction. The galaxy did not celebrate loudly after the last conflict ended. There were no great parades across the stars, no single banner raised above all others. Instead, there was something far rarer. There was quiet. Queen Zalrith noticed it during her morning reports. Border incidents had dropped to nearly nothing. Pirate activity had collapsed. Trade routes stabilized in regions that had known only fear for generations. The stars felt less tense, as if the galaxy itself had released a breath it had been holding for centuries. This peace was not fragile. It was watchful. Human fleets remained active but not aggressive. Their ships patrolled shared lanes, responded to distress calls, and trained jointly with allied forces. They did not posture. They did not threaten. Yet no one doubted their strength anymore. The difference now was that everyone understood the cost of provoking it. Queen Zalrith stood before the great window of her palace station, watching a mixed fleet depart. Human, Vale, and half a dozen other species moved together in perfect formation. No single command vessel dominated the others. Control was shared. Responsibility was shared. It was a vision she would never have imagined in her early reign. Her advisors entered quietly. Many were new. The old guard had faded away over time, some through retirement, some through loss of influence. Those who remained had learned to adapt or be left behind. Another system has requested mediation, one advisor said. They asked specifically for joint oversight with human participation. Zalrith nodded. Approve it. No argument followed. That alone showed how much had changed. Later that cycle, Queen Zalrith traveled to a neutral world to attend the Galactic Assembly. It was not the old council. That institution had collapsed under its own weight. This new gathering was different, smaller, focused, functional. Human representatives arrived without ceremony. No guards marched before them. No symbols of dominance adorned their clothing. Still, the chamber fell quiet when they entered. Respect had replaced fear. The session opened with reports from across known space. Reconstruction continued. Shared defense systems expanded. New communication protocols reduced misunderstandings before they could become conflicts. Then Queen Zalrith was asked to speak. She rose slowly, feeling the eyes of dozens of species upon her. Once they would have watched her with dread, now they watched with attention. I once believed strength was proven only through conquest, she began. I believed fear created order. She paused, choosing her words carefully. I was wrong. A ripple of surprise moved through the chamber. I led fleets that shattered worlds. I believed that made me powerful, but I have learned something since meeting humanity. She turned slightly toward the human delegation. Power that relies on fear must always be enforced. Power that protects others is given freely. Silence followed her words, deep and thoughtful. Humanity showed the galaxy that restraint is not weakness, Zalrith continued. They showed us that fury, when controlled, becomes a shield instead of a blade. She lowered her head slightly, a gesture of respect rarely seen from a Vale queen. I feared humanity's fury, she said. Now I understand it, and I choose to stand with it. The assembly did not erupt in applause. It did something better, they agreed. In the cycles that followed, the galaxy reshaped itself. Borders remained, but they softened. Empires kept their identities, but dominance was no longer the goal. Mutual survival became the foundation of policy. Humanity did not lead by decree. They led by example. Queen Zalrith returned to her dominion and enacted reforms long thought impossible. Civilian protections were written into law. Military doctrine shifted toward defense and rapid response. Local governance gained more autonomy. There was resistance. Some accused her of betraying tradition. Others claimed she had been weakened by human influence. A few attempted to rally rebellion. They failed, not because of force, but because fewer people were willing to follow them. The Dominion was stronger now, not louder, not crueler. Stronger in ways that endured. Years passed. Queen Zalrith aged, her once tireless movements slowing. She spent more time observing than commanding. The galaxy no longer needed constant direction. It had learned to correct itself. One day, she received a private message from a human commander she had fought beside during the war against the machines. We are naming a new academy, the message said. For joint defense leadership, we would be honored if you attended. Zalrith accepted. The academy stood on a world chosen not for power or beauty, but for history. It had once been a battlefield. Now it was a place of learning. Cadets of many species trained together. They studied tactics, ethics, disaster response, and diplomacy. They were taught when to fight and when not to. During the dedication ceremony, the human commander spoke. This academy exists because the galaxy learned a hard lesson, he said. Survival is not about who strikes hardest. It is about who stands together when the storm comes. Queen Zalrith was invited to say a few words. She looked out at the young faces before her. Humans, Vale, species that once would have fled at the sight of her banner. "Remember this," she said simply. "True strength is knowing when not to use all the power you possess." The cadets listened. As the ceremony ended, Zalrith felt a strange peace settle over her. Her legacy would not be measured in conquered systems or broken fleets. It would be measured in what no longer happened. No more burned worlds, no more silent stars. No more fear-driven obedience. In her final years, Queen Zalrith often returned to the moment she first truly feared humanity. Not when they struck hardest, but when they offered mercy while winning. That choice had changed everything. When she finally stepped down, transferring authority peacefully to a chosen successor, the galaxy barely trembled. Systems continued to function. Alliances held. Humanity stood watch, not as rulers, but as guardians of a balance everyone now understood. Historians would later write of Queen Zalrith as the last great conqueror and the first true protector of her people. They would write of humanity as well. They would not call them monsters. They would not call them gods. They would call them something far more enduring. The species that taught the galaxy that fury, when guided by conscience, could save the stars instead of burning them.